Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight, we invite you to descend into darkness with a chilling anthology of horror stories, each one inspired by true events. This is episode 18. Let the nightmare begin. The Echo Editor. They're not real. They're not meant to be full of explicit gore or violence. They've always been simple stories, sometimes overdone, sometimes with plenty of cliches or plot holes, but never truly chilling to the bone. Not before that night. As most of you probably know, creepypasta.com receives plenty of submissions. I had started working on the site as an assistant of sorts after volunteering to help a friend in the staff, reading over submissions to help get through the massive backlog so that they could be opened up again in a timely manner. It was much harder than I had expected, to be honest. Most of the submissions I turned down didn't cross my mind even once after they had been rejected. Most violators followed a similar pattern. Blatant crappy pastas, grammatical errors far too frequent to ignore, rewrites of previous pastas that had been done time and time again. Now, I'm quite the horror fanatic. I love movies, games, stories, anything with a macabre theme that would send chills down the spine. Unfortunately, being such a frequenter of these sites and sources resulted in a sort of immunity to the creepy. Reading through submissions never really made me glance over my shoulder or peer into dark crevices. Not like it used to, anyway. I got cocky, thought that nothing could scare me, that I was invincible to the supposed creep factor. I was stupid. It was late. My roommate was exhausted after studying for some class, so she had turned in for the night. My cat had been fed and was lounging in the other room, probably dozing off for the moment. Luna only ever got up to run around after I'd gone to bed, finding that the most inconvenient time for me must have been the most fun for her. With no homework on my agenda and no work the next day, I tried to filter through as many of the submissions that I had been asked to look over as I could. There weren't many left, just a couple more, and they seemed fairly short. I smiled to myself after whittling them down, proud to see that I had made it through almost every responsibility. I planned on spending my day off relaxing, if I could just make it through 4 more submissions. Shock Factor was next on my list. A submission with no credit name, emailed under submission.spacefiller@gmail.com. I wouldn't be contacting whoever this was. I didn't even bother to test the address, certain that their story wouldn't make it very far. Regardless, I started reading through, almost bored at first as they seemed to go with the cliché setting of being alone on a dark, stormy night. Nothing stood out, at least not at first, but I kept reading. Maybe they'd surprise me, I thought. God, I wish they hadn't. As I kept reading, the story warped into some twisted torture flick. Apparently, the protagonist wasn't completely alone. He had someone tied down in the other room. The narration quickly slipped into a step-by-step account of a horrific dissection, without any anesthesia, on some complete stranger. The part that sent a shiver up my spine was the descriptiveness. It seemed so detailed, so involved. It was like nothing that I had ever read before. Blunt and all too natural. I rejected it, of course. It violated the rules. The email looked fake. I simply discarded it with the others and moved on. It stuck, of course. It had disturbed me a great deal. But I brushed this off as just being a good narrative. If that submission had fallen within the rules, it might have made a good addition. A couple days went by, and at first I had forgotten all about Shock Factor. With the submissions all filtered through and the next submission period being moved on to, I offered to help with the next load if I was needed, and was called to do so about a month later. Again, I went through the stories and rejected whatever didn't follow the FAQ. Honestly, you'd think that some of these people hadn't even given the link a quick gloss over. And it showed up again. Shock Factor Part 2. Did this person honestly expect a Part 2 to be submitted when his first had been rejected? I felt kind of pissed off, thinking that this person had just resubmitted their works, and even a little bit nervous as I remembered just how graphic the last one had been. Regardless, I opened the submission and started to skim through. I was disgusted as I found that the narrator was up to his old tricks, this time with a younger victim, stated as being somewhere around 15 years old. I didn't bother reading through the whole thing, as it somehow managed to disturb me more than the last one. Detailed accounts of torture and abuse far beyond what I ever wanted to read in my life. All the while, it had that extremely real feel to it. That tone that dragged me in and made me believe that this was some actual legitimate account. For a brief moment, rather than some sicko's idea of a joke. A joke. A sick joke to play on the staff for rejecting his first story. That's what this must have been. It was discarded. I made it through my quota, and I didn't volunteer to help anymore after that. For a short while I thought that it was over, and went back to my normal, everyday life. Classes, work, boyfriend. Classes, work, boyfriend. Classes. I began to slip back into my schedule, though memories of the Shock Factor series kept bubbling up over the next week or so. I assured myself that it was over, until I received an email titled, Shock Factor Part 3, to my personal address. It was impossible. There was no way that this guy could have gotten my personal email. I deleted it without bothering to read it, unnerved by the fact that he found me. I tried to think of every possible logical explanation, even getting upset as I considered that my friend had planned some elaborate prank to disprove my boasting over never being creeped out. After sending her an annoyed message, I received a new one, this time titled, Shock Factor Part 3. You should read it this time. My blood ran cold. How the... I looked at the description nervously. The glimpse of a message any Gmail user would be familiar with seeing, located next to the message title. This time there's a cat, and I know you love C. It read, trailing off. I exited the tab and closed my computer. On some sort of god-awful suspicion, I suddenly stood up and began searching the apartment for Luna. I called for her, looked under the furniture. I even asked my roommate about her, and found her nowhere. I started to panic, convincing myself that whoever this anonymous sender was, they had somehow managed to get their hands on something close to me, my pet, out of my house, as the topic of one of his twisted stories. How else could he have known that I had a cat? How could he have known my email address? Who the hell was he? Months went by. I graduated. I moved on in life. I got a job. I never did find Luna after that. Never did find out who was emailing me. Occasionally, I'll still get these strange emails, even after changing over to new addresses. New additions to the Shock Factor series. Every time with a short description. The worst part is that every time I receive a submission, it seems to happen just after I lose something, and whatever I lose ends up in the story. I'll misplace a sewing kit and find Shock Factor Part 6, stitching, or I'll lose a pair of scissors and receive Shock Factor Part 9, cutting up. It scares me now. I dread checking my email. I'm paranoid. I never go out alone. It's putting a lot of strain on me and on my boyfriend. I make him go everywhere with me except to work. The Shock Factor series has worked its way to Part 23 at this point. I don't know how much more of this I can take. If you ever receive an email from submission.spacefiller, an email titled Shock Factor, anything of the sort, please ignore it. For your own sake, ignore it. I don't know if that would even work. It's driving me crazy. I can't go anywhere alone. I feel like someone is following me. Like this stranger knows everything that goes on in my life. I don't know how his stories got so realistic either, but I don't want to think about it. I just got a text the other day, too. One that has driven me to the point of seeking legal help. I'm going to the police now. He has my phone number, and he's not going to stay out of sight forever. It waits beneath the steps. I stand at the top of my stairs, sock toes curling into the carpet as one hand squeezes the door handle and the other hovers over the light switch, trying to decide if it's safe to turn the lights out. It's nearly 7 at night. I have about an hour before sundown, but it's just dim enough in the stairwell to make me doubt if that really matters. I stare down at the welcome mat, and though I see nothing, I know the thing that lives at the bottom of my stairs is watching me, too. I know its gauzy white eyes never blink, and that its teeth, thin and too long for its mouth, extending far past its leathery lips, cannot smile. But I feel as if it's grinning at me. I know it's gaunt. Lanky limbs are curled and crouched around its small body, waiting to lunge the second the light is out. I know it isn't real. If it was real, I would be able to see it. But even as I remind myself of this, I leave the light on. You see, I made him up, the creature that lives at the bottom of my stairs. I've always had an active imagination. Many children create monsters or imaginary friends with rules. A man who runs beside the car, but can only run in the shadow of the vehicle. A ghost who befriends you, but is invisible to anyone older than you. A monster who waits at the bottom of your stairs, but can't move until the lights are out. I'm not sure why I never stopped doing this. I'm approaching my mid-20s, and most children stopped around 10, or at least they stopped talking about it. I try to keep my concerns to myself, though I've had to explain myself a time or two as to why I have to be the one who closes the door. I'm the only one who knows what he's doing because I created him. The worst part is I know that he only exists because I think he does. There have been weeks or months where I can go up the stairs to my apartment and not feel his eyes on my back, his claw-like fingers waiting to rip into me. All it takes is a stray thought, and he's there again. There have been times where I was too slow to close my door after I turned the light out. Nothing happens right away, though I know he is in my apartment with me. There's always a chill in my spine and a cold stone in my stomach when he gets past my door. But it's not like he drags me down the stairs or anything. For some reason, though I know he is capable of killing me, he doesn't, even when I succeed. Sometimes there's this dull thudding noise that starts at 2 a.m. and continues until sunrise, like he's slamming his dry, callous, too big hand against the door, demanding I open it and let him in. This has been the hardest part about accepting he is not real, because I have had guests ask me about the noise. I never know what to tell them. Though on the nights he gets in, I can feel him watching me from the doorway to my room, which unfortunately shares a wall with that stairwell. He sits in the same spot all night, breath wheezing out his squished, bat-like nose, body twitching and contorting as he runs his clawed fingers over his face in anticipation. Though I will never claim to have actually seen him, I will say I feel as if a trick of the light or a stray shadow have sometimes looked as if they were trying to reveal him to me. My biggest worry is I think he's getting closer with each time I fail. He started right outside my doorway, but he was a mere 3 feet from me the last time. I can't really tell, because he isn't real and because I can't see him. But I think he's getting more worked up. I don't know what he's so excited about, but I can guess it will happen when he has made his way to sit at the foot of my bed. I think he's getting faster. I've been failing more often than not to keep him out. It won't be long now before he reaches his goal, whatever that goal is. Maybe it's to torment me and feed off my fear what he'll do next. If that's his goal, he's succeeding. It's killing me. I can't sleep knowing he's there. I know he's never attacked me in the past, but I'm always scared that tonight will be the night he decides that enough is enough and goes for it. My lack of sleep is hurting my job. My paranoia is ruining my relationships. All I do is sit at home and hide away from the creature I don't know how to stop. I'm sick of it. So tonight, I'm not going to hide. Tonight, I'm leaving the door to the stairwell open when I turn off the light. I'm turning off all the lights in my shitty apartment, and I'm going to sit on my bed in the dark. Tonight, when his twisted body lunges and lurches its way into my room, I'm not going to pretend I don't see him. I'm not going to pretend that just because I made him up, that means he's not real. I'm going to look him in those disgusting, cloudy eyes and accept my fate. I'm tired of waiting. I don't know what time it is now. The clock in the living room stopped working weeks ago, and I haven't bothered replacing the battery. The only sound is the low hum of my refrigerator, occasionally clicking and shuddering like it's struggling to stay alive. I sit on my bed, knees drawn up to my chest, arms wrapped tight around them. The room is pitch black, but I refuse to turn on the light. I keep waiting for the creak of the stairs. for the sound of dry skin scraping against drywall, for the rasp of breath from that squashed, animal-like nose. But there's nothing, just the hum of the fridge and the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. I want to believe this will prove something, that if I can sit here long enough, in the dark, with the door open, and nothing happens, I'll finally be able to stop. That maybe I'll be able to sleep again. Maybe I can stop checking behind every door. Stop leaving the hallway light on every night like some terrified child. But I don't believe it. Not really. Because I know he's there. I can feel him. It's like a pressure in the air. Something heavy and wrong, pushing against the edges of my awareness. Like the feeling of someone standing just behind you. Close enough to touch, but not quite. There's no breeze, no chill. But every hair on my body is standing up. My mouth is dry. I keep swallowing, but it doesn't help. I shift on the bed, the mattress creaking beneath me. And in that moment, I hear something, a whisper of movement, a rustle, a faint, scraping sound from the hallway. I freeze. I don't breathe. I stare into the darkness of the open doorway, eyes straining to make out any shape, any difference in the black on black. There's nothing there, but I know better. I know he's there. He's waiting for me to blink, to move, to flinch. I try to steady my breathing, but it's getting harder. My chest is tight. Every breath feels like it's being sucked through a straw. Too thin, too fast. I squeeze my eyes shut, just for a second, just long enough to calm down. When I open them, he's closer. I know he is. I still can't see him, but the pressure is stronger now, like he's inside the room with me. I want to scream, but I'm afraid if I do, he'll answer. So I sit there, frozen in the dark, listening. The scraping starts again, slow, methodical, like fingernails being dragged across the floorboards. Then it stops. Silence again. I count in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. I make it to 17 before I hear another sound. A breath. It's wet and raspy, like air being forced through a collapsed lung. It's coming from the foot of my bed. I can't help it. I jerk back, pressing myself against the wall, hands flying out in front of me. They touch nothing. Nothing but air. But I know he's there. I can feel the heat of his breath. I can hear the hitch in his chest. I can smell him, old, sour, like rotting meat left out too long. Tears sting the corners of my eyes. Why did I do this? Why did I think this was a good idea? He's real. He's always been real. It doesn't matter that I made him up, that I gave him rules. He's not following them anymore. I curl into myself, trying to be small, invisible. The mattress shifts slightly. I can't tell if it's him or if it's just me shaking so hard the bed is moving with me. I don't dare open my eyes again. If I see him, it's over. I know that. He's waiting for me to look. He wants me to see him, to acknowledge him, to give him permission. I bury my face in my knees and try to block everything out. The sound, the smell, the feel of the room warping around me. I stay like that for what feels like hours. Eventually, the sounds fade. The air eases. The pressure lifts. I open my eyes just a crack. The doorway is still open. There's nothing there. No sound. No breath. I'm alone. I slide off the bed and walk, slowly, carefully, to the door. The hallway is empty. The stairs are quiet. I close the door and lock it. Then I sit on the floor back against the wood and cry until I can't breathe. The next morning, everything feels off. The sun is out. The birds are singing. But I can't shake the feeling that something is wrong, that something has shifted. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just sat on the floor all night, back against the door, waiting to hear him again. But he didn't come back. At least, not in the way I expected. There's a strange sense of absence in the apartment, like something has been removed, like something is missing. I keep checking the corners, the shadows, the closets. Everything is exactly the same, but nothing feels the same. I go about my day in a haze, coffee, shower work, but I'm distracted, disconnected. I keep thinking about last night, about the breath, the smell, the sound of claws on the floorboards. I keep thinking about how close he got, how close he still might be. I tell myself I imagined it. That was all in my head. That if I just stop thinking about it, it'll go away. But I know better. I've played this game before. It doesn't go away. It waits. It waits for me to slip up, to forget, to doubt. I try to go to bed early that night, but I can't stop looking at the door. I left the hallway light on again, the way I used to, the way I always do when I'm too scared to face the dark. I hate it. I hate that after everything, I'm still scared. I hate that he still has power over me, but I'm not ready to try again. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for sounds, waiting for the scrape, the breath, the whisper. But the night stays quiet. Too quiet. It's not comforting, it's suffocating. Like the calm before a storm. Like something holding its breath. The silence stretches on, and eventually I drift into a restless sleep. I dream of stairs. Endless stairs. I'm walking down them, but they never end. The light fades the further I go, until I'm surrounded by darkness. And still I walk. Down, 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 until I feel it. The presence, the thing I made, the thing I named, the thing that used to wait at the bottom of the stairs. It's behind me now, following, getting closer. Its breath is hot on my neck. I try to turn around, but I can't. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. I wake up gasping, drenched in sweat. The hallway light is off. I didn't turn it off. My heart stops. I sit up in bed, eyes wide, searching the dark. Did the bulb burn out? Did I forget to change it? Or did he turn it off? I don't know what's worse. I slide out of bed and tiptoe to the door. The hallway is pitch black. No sound. No movement. I flip the switch. The light comes on. The bulb is fine. I don't remember turning it off. I don't think I did. I back away slowly, close the door, and lock it. Then I sit on the bed, watching the door, waiting for something to happen. Nothing does. But I don't feel safe. Not anymore. The next few days blur together. I go to work, come home, pretend everything is normal. But it's not. Every time I walk up the stairs to my apartment, I feel it. The eyes on my back, the chill in the air, the pressure like something holding its breath, waiting for me to make a mistake. I've started leaving the light on all the time now. Even during the day. It doesn't help. The feeling never leaves. Sometimes I hear things at night. Thumps, whispers, scratching. I try to tell myself it's the building settling. Pipes clanking. Neighbors moving around. But I know better. He's still there. Waiting. Watching. Getting closer. I haven't seen him. Not really. Just shadows. Hints. A blur in the corner of my eye. A shape that vanishes when I turn my head. I keep telling myself he's not real. That I made him up. But that excuse doesn't work anymore. Not when I wake up with scratches on my arms. Not when I find the door to the stairwell open, even though I locked it the night before. Not when I feel his breath on my neck. While I'm lying in bed, I'm losing it. I know I am. People at work have started to notice. I'm always tired, always jumpy. They ask me if I'm okay. I say yes. I lie, because what else can I say? That I'm being haunted by something I invented as a child? That there's a monster at the bottom of my stairs, who's slowly working his way into my life. No one would believe me. Hell, I barely believe me. And yet, every time the lights go out, every time I close my eyes, he's there, closer than before. I've started sleeping with the lamp on. It helps a little, but not enough. The other night, I heard the doorknob turn. Not jiggle. Turn. Slowly. Deliberately. Like someone testing it. I sat up in bed, heart in my throat, staring at the door. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The knob stopped turning after a few seconds. There was a pause. Then the soft sound of claws dragging across wood. I didn't sleep after that. I didn't even move. I just sat there, lamp on, watching the door, waiting. Morning came. The door was still closed, still locked, but I know he was there. I felt him. I always do. I don't know what he's waiting for, what he wants, why he hasn't just done it already. Maybe he enjoys the fear. Maybe that's the point. To make me suffer, to drag it out, to feed off the tension and dread. If that's true, he's doing a damn good job. I don't know how much more of this I can take. So tonight, I'm not going to hide. Tonight, I'm leaving the door to the stairwell open when I turn off the light. I'm turning off all the lights in my shitty apartment, and I'm going to sit on my bed in the dark. Tonight, when his twisted body lunges and lurches its way into my room, I'm not going to pretend I don't see him. I'm not going to pretend that just because I made him up, that means he's not real. I'm going to look him in those disgusting, cloudy eyes and accept my fate. I'm tired of waiting. That was the last thing I wrote. The last journal entry on my computer. The last thought I could organize. Everything after that is a blur. I've tried over and over to remember what happened that night, but it's like trying to hold smoke in my hands. Slippery, disorienting. I know I turned off the lights. I know I left the door open. I know I sat on the bed, waiting. I know. He came in. I felt it. The shift in the air. The tension in my chest. The certainty that I was no longer alone. But I didn't look. I couldn't. My courage failed me. I sat there, paralyzed, eyes squeezed shut, every muscle screaming. And then, nothing. No claws. No breath. No whisper. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. The door was closed. The room was empty. I was still alive, but everything felt different. Off. Wrong. I don't know if he was disappointed I didn't look at him, or if he's just playing a longer game now. Either way, he hasn't left. If anything, he's more present than ever. He doesn't need the stairwell anymore. He's moved past that. He's in the apartment now. In the walls. In the shadows. In the silence between heartbeats. I can't escape him. He's always there. I've tried to leave. I've stayed with friends. Booked hotel rooms. Slept in my car. It doesn't matter. He follows. Or maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe he's part of me now. Maybe he always was. Maybe I didn't create him. Maybe I discovered him. Unleashed him. Invited him. I don't know. I'm too tired to figure it out. Too tired to care. I barely eat. Barely sleep. I don't work anymore. I don't go outside. There's no point. He's here. He's one. Every night, I hear him breathing. Every night, I feel him watching. And every night, I refuse to look. Because deep down I know, if I ever truly see him, if I ever meet his eyes, there'll be no turning back. And maybe that's what he wants. Maybe that's all he's ever wanted. I know I can't live like this much longer. The fear is eating me from the inside out. I don't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, hands that won't stop trembling. I don't talk to anyone. I don't answer my phone. I haven't checked my email in weeks. I don't remember the last time I left the apartment, or the last time I felt safe, or warm, or loved. I'm fading, and he knows it. He feeds on it. He's stronger now, more real. Sometimes I see the imprint of his fingers in the dust on my shelves. Sometimes the floorboards creak under weight that isn't mine. Sometimes I catch glimpses of him in the mirror, just for a second, before the reflection flickers back to normal. I know what I have to do. I have to end it, one way or another. I've thought about burning the apartment down, trapping him inside, but I don't think that would work. He's not tied to this place. He's tied to me. I've thought about ending my life, but I don't think that would work either. He'd follow me, into the dark, into the beyond, into whatever comes next. I can't run. I can't hide. So there's only one thing left. I have to look at him. I have to face him, truly see him. If that destroys me, so be it. At least it will be over. At least I'll be free. Tonight, I'm sitting in the dark again. Door open. Lights off. Same as before. But this time I won't close my eyes. This time I won't hide. He's here. I can feel him. Closer than ever. The air is thick, heavy, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. I hear him breathing, wet, raspy, hungry. I see a shape in the doorway. Tall, twisted, limbs too long, skin stretched tight, eyes like fog glass. He steps into the room, slowly, purposefully. His head tilts, curious. He's waiting for me to look, to acknowledge, to accept. My hands are shaking. My heart is pounding. But I do it. I raise my eyes and meet his. And in that moment, everything changes. He smiles. It's not a smile meant for comfort. It's wrong, broken, too many teeth, too wide, too eager. He crosses the room in a blur, his body contorting with every step. I don't move. I don't scream. I just watch. He stops in front of me, close enough to touch. His hand reaches out, fingers like knives, and gently touches my face. It burns, like ice and fire all at once. I don't flinch. I don't look away. And then, he's gone. The room is empty. The air is still. My heart is racing. But I'm alive. Alone. No breath. No shadow. No weight. Just me. I don't know what happened. I don't know what it means. But the fear is gone. The pressure. The presence. The waiting. Gone. I walk to the door and close it. Then I turn on the light. Everything looks the same. But I know it's different. I'm different. I don't know if he's truly gone, or if he's just sleeping, waiting for me to slip again, to doubt, to fear. But for now, for the first time in what feels like forever, I feel free. And if he comes back, I'll be ready. Whispers from the linen room. Reading a couple stories here, and something that happened to me came to mind. You ever have moments that you blip out completely? As if your brain can bother to remember something only so often, so it's shoved into the depths of your memory? But something always seems to unleash it. I've forgotten the house on 12 Dahlia Road in the little town of Mary Esther, Florida. Though forgotten isn't altogether the right word here, because the truth is, I never really forget. The things I'm about to tell you are completely true, in which even my family can attest to. Not one to be fictitious or exaggerating. I will tell you this story in its entirety. Names and places, however, have been changed to protect those that have witnessed it. My husband passed away when I'd been pregnant with my daughter. On his way home from work one evening, he'd been T-boned by a drunk driver and had slid peacefully into a coma while on site. He'd simply never woken up. During my mourning, I'd stayed with my parents until our daughter, Sophie, was born. She was, I want to say, 9 months old when I'd been feeding her breakfast in the small kitchen one morning. Her high chair was wedged between the table and the wall as best I could manage, while still allowing room for movement in the little dining area. My father hadn't been able to squeeze through the gap, and I guess that had been the snapping point. "Emily," he sighed, setting his coffee mug on the table heavily. Coffee sloshed over the rim and stained the table's scratched and marred surface. "Margaret, my mom, and I've been talking for a while now, and we'd like to give you the other house." A little backstory here. When I'd been 11, we'd moved shortly after my grandfather had passed, and into my grandmother's house 2 cities over. My father had felt she needed someone to look after her in her age, and we hadn't bothered to sell the other house. Instead, we'd rent it out and save the extra money for emergencies. Occasionally, we'd lend it to children of friends or a college graduate transitioning from school to the real world. It was slightly damaged from over the years, but it was my childhood home. I was more than happy to raise my daughter in the house that had shaped me as a child. It wasn't as if I didn't enjoy my family or didn't love them enough. The memories I had after Daniel's death were full of warm comfort and patience. My parents were wonderful and had made a point to make sure I never felt as if I inconvenienced them in any way. Looking back on it, I think they were a little sad I was taking their only daughter and granddaughter from their home, but they also understood my need for independence again. I needed my own home, my own space, something in which I could carve out mine in the world in big, bold letters. And the house in Mary Esther seemed like a perfect opportunity. It had taken almost a week to ready the house, just to move in. Luckily, friends, family, and neighbors seemed to crawl out of the woodwork to help. They'd installed a new garage door, a working dishwasher, helped fix the leaky roof. They'd even repaired the damages a previous tenant's dog had wrecked. The dog must have been a massive thing because it had broken a sliding glass bathtub door, shredded through cabinets, and taken huge chunks out of the hallway's carpet. In the end, we couldn't save the floor and ripped it out. We'd placed down linoleum tile that looked like faux wood flooring, but much cheaper. The linen closet at the end of the hall had been left unscathed, so the carpet in there remained. It poked out a little along the bottom of the door, but it was tolerable. I wasn't about to complain, after all. Everybody had put in so much effort to make me right at home. A little fluff under a door was the last thing I was going to gripe about. I was thankful. It was a Monday evening when I'd finally gotten settled into my new home. I had taken putting everything where it belonged on pause so that I could give Sophie a bath in the new tub. We hadn't had a tub in my grandmother's home. The house had been fashioned around someone handicapped, so we'd had the big, bulky shower stalls. In the new house, though, we had a big tub in the hall bathroom, and Sophie was more than excited to check it out. Covered in bubbles of lavender-scented baby shampoo, she giggled and played until she was all tuckered out. I realized I'd accidentally put up all the towels instead of leaving a handful in the bathroom for drying, and let Sophie sit in the little remaining water as I went to the linen closet at the end of the hall. It was only a short 10 paces away at most. It had been the linen closet when I'd been a child, and my mother had taken to putting the excess sheets, towels, and linens along wooden shelves that lined the interior of the spacious room. Having recently acquired the house, I took up the same habit. Comforted by the familiarity of my childhood home, its familiar smell, I listened to Sophie splash and play in the last few drops of water as I stopped short in the hallway. It was the first time I actually noticed the doorknob. It wasn't just a smooth, gold knob like the other closets in the hall, or even the bedroom doors for that matter. A turnstile lock on the doorknob on the outside. It didn't sit well with me. Had someone been locking someone slash something in the linen closet? Maybe it was the dog that destroyed the house, I thought to myself. Maybe it got out of hand occasionally, and they'd locked it in the spacious closet. It was odd that the door would have a lock on the outside, and I made a mental note to change it. What had the previous renters been doing here? What if Sophie locked herself in the closet by accident? She was autistic and would panic horribly. It would take hours for her to calm down if that happened. I swaddled her in the oversized towel, which hung over her feet and pooled on the floor in heavy maroon shades. Her blonde hair spiked all over her head in all directions, and she giggled as I dried and tickled her mercilessly. Afterwards, I slid her into her Hello Kitty-footed pajamas and tucked her into her crib. I hated that crib, to tell you the truth. It was massive, and being a small woman of only 5 feet in height, it was a real pain to get her in and out of the thing. It felt as if my abdomen was bruising every time I leaned over the wooden rails to pick her up. I sat in the large rocking chair my grandmother had given to me as a housewarming present and read her the tale of the last Basilope. It was a book my father had read to me almost every night in that very room, in that very chair. Truthfully, I was a little homesick. I missed my folks, but more so, I missed Daniel horribly, wishing that he could see us more than anything else. I missed his smell, the texture of his clothes, the feel of his breath. It shattered my heart just to think of him. He'd never even gotten a chance to see Sophie, or read to her, or touch her face. He'd never gotten a chance to watch her first steps, hear her first words, or help her on the bus on the first day of school. All because some stupid kid had decided he'd been okay to drink and drive. I was crying quietly by the time she'd fallen asleep. Sniffling softly, I placed the book on the chair and headed to the bathroom, leaving her door open to crack so I could hear her better. Her soft snores floated after me. Leaving her room, the linen closet was directly on the left, the dead center of the end of the hallway. That damn lock, I kept thinking. It just does not make sense. Who would put it there? Was it a temp fix for a broken knob? Maybe. Why not just switch it out with one of the plain bedroom knobs then? I dampened the corner of Sophie's bath towel and dabbed my eyes. I hung it over the shower rail and blew my nose in a handful of tissue paper. No more tears, I told myself. It's a new start, a new beginning. The lights in the bathroom flickered briefly, which wasn't exactly abnormal. We lived rather close to the Air Force Base, so the practice bombings occasionally caused electrical interference. Off in the distance, I remember I could even faintly hear it. The heavy OMPH noise that sounded like heavy fireworks in the distance. I settled into the living room, keeping an ear open for the baby as I began to read in the quiet of the new house. At first, I didn't notice the sound. A new house, it's bound to have some random ticks. The steadily cracking along the top of the walls, a small scraping sound. I muttered in disgust, "Great," as I slid the bookmark into a page and set the novel down. My first thought was, there's some kind of animal in the crawl space. From the way the scraping bounced up and down the wall suddenly, I assumed it was a squirrel. It ran from floor to ceiling, a sound like scurrying and bobbing. Small claws rattled against the wooden posts of the inner wall and sheetrock lining. I followed the noise, trying to track where it could possibly be. It went along the top of the living room wall, down the corner, back up the cold air return in the mouth of the hall, and around the top of the door frame of the bathroom. "Oh, it's going to wake up Sophie," I grumbled, getting royally pissed off suddenly. She'd already had a traumatic day, with moving and all the people. The last thing she needed was to wake up and have a meltdown. Like I said, she's autistic and absolutely hated anything that wrecked with her routine. Messing with sleep time definitely wrecked her routine. A heavy thump and something that sounded like a slide, and I decided I've just about had enough. I darted in my room, across the hall from Sophie's room, and next to that damn closet, and snatched the phone receiver off its charging base. I punched in my father's cell phone number instantly and listened to the ringing. In the span of time it took him to answer, the thing in the crawl space had maneuvered to the ceiling right outside my bedroom door. "Emily, are you okay?" was the first thing he asked, bless his heart. "Yeah," I reassured him instantly, feeling more than a little guilty and foolish for calling so abruptly. "It's just that there's something moving around in the crawl space beneath the attic in the house." After a short pause, he laughed in his usual warm, grumbly way and said, "It's probably a possum or squirrel." I agreed with him. "True, but I don't know who to call about it, and I'm afraid it'll wake up the baby." A few grumbling noises and the slam of a pickup truck's tailgate later, he began, "I can head out in the morning." But my mother interrupted him. "Is that Emily? Does she need something?" Her voice had begun to go a bit nervous around the edges and raising. "We could be over there in 15 minutes, honey. It's just a rodent problem," he tried to tell her, but being my mom, that was the worst thing he could have told her. A rodent problem? Damn it, Richard. She'd gone into full raging by then. "Get the truck loaded up. Our grandbaby doesn't need that crap." The scraping had intensified by then and slithered around the wall in the corner of my room. "Is that it?" Dad asked, hearing the sound over the phone. "Yeah," I answered, smacking the wall in an attempt to frighten and quiet the wretched thing. It didn't work. Instead, it became more agitated and scraped with frantic claws that sounded as if they were the size of butcher knives. "Jesus," he muttered. "Margaret, to my mother," he shouted. "Get the shovel from beside the garage while I get the keys." To me, don't aggravate it. It might have rabies. Hell, I hadn't even thought about that until then. Can it get in the actual house? I asked, worry for my child seeping into my heart. I darted across the hall and peeked in her room, but she was still fast asleep in the big crib with a princess nightlight shining over her. "Block off the cold air return and the closet," he informed me. "If it's in the crawl space, it might be able to get to the ventilation fan in the utility closet." A new set of worries plagued me as he promised to be there in no less than 15 minutes. And if anything else happened, to call his cell phone right away. I closed the door to Sophie's room as a precaution and kicked into gear as I slid the phone into my back pocket. While the creature scraped and bounced down the walls, I somehow moved the small recliner in the living room down the linoleum floor of the hall and positioned it in front of the cold air return below the utility closet. I'd successfully blocked both with one piece of furniture. Feeling rather proud of myself, I sat in the chair for a moment and waited on Mom and Dad. Silence abruptly filled the hall. The scuttling drained away as if it had never been. It was so unnerving. The hairs on the back of my neck raised as goose flesh marched up and down my arms, climbed my cheeks. It hadn't been silent for almost an hour. Nothing but constant scraping, slithering, bouncing, and scratching. I'd have preferred the movement to the unsettling, deafening quiet. With her bedroom closed, I didn't even have Sophie's light snore to drown it out. I sat in that hall, in that chair, and listened to the sound of my own pulse rushing through my ears for I don't know how long. Each rhythmic rush of blood seemed louder than the last. I tried to lick my suddenly dry lips, but found my tongue had been equally devoid of moisture. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat. My thoughts raced. Had it gotten hurt or maybe stuck? Maybe it had found an escape and I was wasting my parents' time? I felt like a fool sitting there, with my chair wedged against the wall, waiting for my heartbeat to slow. But then something shoved the chair from behind, and I was moved a good half foot. Too scared to even scream, I shoved the chair back just as hard. The only thought I can honestly say that filled my head at that precise moment was of my baby. Sophie was in that house, with that creature that was shoving against my chair, shoving against my back. My baby was in possible mortal danger. My heart soared as I went into some kind of protective overdrive. I jumped up and whirled, shoving with all my might to slam that chair right back into that damn wall. No creature on earth was going to burst into my home and threaten me and my child. The utility door tried to open once more, rocking the chair forward before I kicked it shut again. Scraping, scratching, a kind of odd hiss, and it was back into the ceiling. It scrambled faster now, and I scrambled just as fast after it. It darted down the hall, bouncing between the door frames of the guest room, the bathroom, my bedroom, Sophie's, before starting all over again. I was going to kill the thing with my own hands at this point. Let it come down the utility closet. I was going to strangle it to death for doing this crap to me. Squirrel, possum, rat, whatever. It was dead, I tell you. My pulse was pounding on the back of my tongue so hard, I could almost taste it. I'd grabbed the broom from the bathroom and wielded it like a sword as I waited for the creature to seek purchase somewhere. Hell, at that point, I'd probably slammed the broom handle through the ceiling to kill that little devil. I was snarling, stark raving mad, trying to keep as quiet as possible. I felt as if I had become an overprotective mama bear and I needed blood to calm down. Something shifted and the scrapings changed. It went into the ceiling space in the linen closet. I was so enraged, I nearly ripped the doorknob off the door to open it, but before I could, what sounded as if wooden boards, were being rendered and ripped from inside. I stopped, the onslaught of fury in me feeding to near panic. It felt as if the fight had gone right out of me, replaced solely with horrifying, chilling terror. It hadn't sounded big enough to do that much damage. It hadn't sounded like it had fingers or teeth that could yank the ceiling right out of the little room. A heavy thump and a slithery shift before what I could only imagine sounded of heavy towels and sheets falling to the ground within the linen closet. The growl that crawled from under the door sent shivers up my spine and arms. Broom in hand, I was preparing to slaughter it while my heart was wedged in my throat, and I wonder for the first time if I'd actually survive it. It sounded like a dog. I know that sounds crazy, but it sounded like a dog pacing in the confines of the linen closet, and fear, cold and real, iced my body from the inside out. The doorknob grabbed my attention, and I swear to you, it started to turn. That lock, that damn lock, and I clicked it home. The creature howled, livid beyond all belief, and slammed into the door bodily, heavily. The thick wood physically shook in the frame. Phone retrieved from my back pocket. I frantically called my father as tears filled my eyes. I honestly did not expect to survive the otherworldly creature I'd locked in my linen closet. How could I protect my baby if I was dead? I was almost crying. He answered on the third ring, the sound of my mother laughing in the background. "Where are you?" I demanded before he had a chance to say hello, my voice watery with unshed tears of horror and fear. I was full out panicking on how to survive this thing long enough to see to the safety of my child. "A couple blocks, what's wrong?" His voice full of worry and concern. I could hear the traffic moving around them, the flow of shifting tires, honking horns. The sound of the city, my city. "It's some kind of dog," I told him, all but actually crying now. The doorknob shifted restlessly before it finally gave up, as if it had hoped to somehow break the lock. "That's impossible," my father informed me, scoffing. "It might sound big in the little space." "I'm not making this up," I hollered, and the door shivered under another onslaught again. "Holy hell," he whispered in my phone as the noise carried. To my mother, "Get the shotgun from behind the seat and load it." To me, "Get Sophie and get out of the house. We'll take care of it. We're almost there. At a red light right now, but we're almost there." I don't know if he was comforting me or him at that point. I watched in horror as the carpet beneath the door moved, as if something was yanking heavily on it, as if they were taking big handfuls and pulling. Not wasting any more time with that, I flung open the door to the baby's room, threw the phone to the floor, and slapped the wall switch until brilliant light flooded the room. She was still resting on her back. One tiny little fist clutched her pale cheek as her fluffy blonde tufts angled out in every direction. I wrapped her delicately, calmly in the pink little blanket and draped myself over the crib so that I had enough leverage to pull her out. My abdomen screamed in protest as the bars of the crib pushed into my middle. The entire time, the creature in the closet was digging at the carpet under the door. It pulled the fabric back far enough. I could see the glue to the floor. Holding her to my chest and bouncing her ever so gently, comfortingly, as she nuzzled into me, moodily waking up, I stepped as softly as possible out of her room as to not wake her further. As I neared the end of the hall, it howled, and I was too afraid to look back, too scared to look over my shoulder and double-check that the linen closet's door was still holding. Instead, I all but crashed into the front door and ran into the driveway in time to see the spill of headlights illuminate my street. My dad pulled up in his red Ford F-150, shotgun clamped tightly in his hand as I rushed to the flinging open door of the cab. "Are you okay?" My mother was already demanding as she jumped out of her side of the truck to run to me. Dad was pulling the shovel from the back of the truck and moving it to the front porch as he glanced inside the screen door. I assumed he meant to kill and bury the thing with the tools and never once questioned it. "It's in the linen closet," I told him, tears of relief streaming down my face as I clutched to my mom, all but sobbing. "Oh, baby," she said, and held me close as she shifted Sophie from my shoulder to hers. "Go help your father, I've got her." I kissed both their cheeks, tucked Sophie's little pajama-covered foot back in the pink blanket, and got to the porch. I took the shovel from its resting place against the brick and stood with Dad beside the door. He cocked his head, ear pressed to the door, and listened. After a moment, he asked, "Is that it?" After a pause, I could hear it too. It was a guttural, low growl, almost too quiet to have heard. I couldn't manage an answer. My voice felt dried and hollow in my throat, unable to force its way through my cold lips. I managed a weak nod, eyes wide and scared. Switching off the safety, he opened the screen door and stepped inside. I mustered courage and followed him, shovel in hand. The house went quiet and still as we moved through the living room. He peeked into the den and kitchen for a moment before asking me to move the chair in the hall. I propped the shovel and managed to shove the recliner to the side, giving him enough room. He flung open the utility closet first and studied the little room in the hall lighting. A muttered obscenity, and I realized what he's swearing at as I grappled the shovel with numb fingers. Claw marks, deep and wide, riddled the thick, wooden door and the sheetrock lining the room. There were at least hundreds of them, gashing wide into the wall, around the backing of the AC unit, and down the door. Chills ran rampant up and down my arms and face as he slowly closed the door and turned to the linen closet. The lock, that damned lock, was twisted and free. Had it gotten out? We agreed he'd aim the gun and I'd open the door in the end. With me to his right, my breath came in labored puffs. My pulse raced through my veins and pounded into my ears until I thought I might faint. I grasped the cold, gold doorknob and twisted, resisting the urge to squeeze my eyes shut against the nightmare. Yanking the door with all my might sent me crashing into Sophie's bedroom door frame. My dad was as still as a tomb as he stood there. His eyes shifted from all over the linen closet to me, back to the closet. I peeked around the edge of the door and stared at the chaos as the shovel dropped from my loose, cold fingers. Towels, sheets, pillow covers were littering the floor, covered in thick tufts of loose carpet. Claw marks, matching the utility closet, riddled the walls and doors. The doorknob appeared to display a set of teeth marks. The ceiling, however, was perfectly intact. We spent the better part of half an hour tearing through shredded towels, hefting shelves, throwing sheets, but could not find a single hole into the room. We searched the whole house, gun and shovel in hand, prepared to mutilate any living thing we found, but came up empty. My mother helped me pack Sophie's things, some clothes, necessities, and we took their truck back to their home, forgoing my little minivan in the driveway, as my fingers were still too numb to drive. The next day, I packed up as fast as I'd settled in, and with Sophie on my hip, we shoved the for sale sign home into the dirt of the front yard. I never spent another night in the home of my childhood. The haunting of Dr. Lennart. 3 years ago, one of my colleagues, whom I consider a friend, uncharacteristically stopped coming to work. Dr. Lennart was in his 40s and was well respected. Health-wise, he was a runner and in impeccable shape. He had been working toward obtaining his master's degree, so I figured he most likely succeeded in taking a position elsewhere. I just thought it was odd that he didn't tell any of his lunch buddies goodbye or anything. Some of us had known him for 10 years. His empty chair at the lunch table often evoked questions of his disappearance. Hey, did Lennart win the lottery or something? Lucky prick doesn't have to work anymore. Does anyone know if Lennart took another job or something? Did he die? What the hell happened to that dude? Nobody seemed to know anything. They knew what I knew. He never came back to work. I Googled his name and found nothing. No social media presence, no criminal record, no newspaper articles, no obituary, nothing. I literally ran into Dr. Lennart yesterday as I was entering and he was exiting a gas station. As we shook hands, he appeared pleased to see me, but his eyes were dull and teary. Quite frankly, his physical transformation altogether was beyond shocking. He was thin 3 years ago, but has since lost a considerable amount of weight, which aided in accentuating the wrinkled skin that sagged like melted wax from his face and bones. His once groomed and lively brown hair had turned light gray, long and wet. "Hey man, what happened to you?" I inquired with a warm, cheerful smile. Now, Dr. Lennart was a great listener, a sensible man who often gave profound advice on matters, but he was never known to be an elaborate storyteller. However, what he confessed to me outside of this gas station yesterday had every hair on my body flaring. I haven't been able to think about anything else, and usually nothing really affects me. He said, "Evan, this is going to sound strange, but it's the horrible truth." I just smiled and shrugged, not really knowing what else to do. There was indescribable anguish in his tone, and so much pain poured from his face while conveying the following. On the morning of December 4th, 2012, I was taking a shower before work, just like I do every morning. Well, I heard someone pounding on the bathroom door. Evan, I mean really pounding. I could tell it was my oldest son as he began shouting, "Dad, Dad, let me in." I yelled back to him, "Come in. The door shouldn't be locked." I finished as fast as I could. While rinsing the last of the shampoo from my hair, my son's voice echoed repeatedly throughout the bathroom, or maybe just my head. I kept hearing, "Dad, Dad, let me in. Dad, Dad, let me in." I dried off and got partially dressed. I went straight for his bedroom, and there he was, my 16-year-old son, nestled gently underneath his cocoon of covers with his eyes closed. I laughed a little as I said, "You know the door wasn't locked. You could have just come right in." He didn't stir. I cleared my throat and made my voice more authoritative. "Wake up, son. It's time to get ready for school." He didn't budge. He remained completely still. I got closer and shook his shoulder. He wasn't breathing at all, and his body was like ice. I sat and stared at my son for several minutes before calling for my wife. He died unexpectedly, and honestly, Evan, I've had a really difficult time dealing with it ever since. Dr. Lennart paused. He used the bottom of his shirt to sop up the streams on his cheeks. I know my own son's voice, and I heard it loud and clear. I heard it not even 2 minutes before entering his bedroom. Yet the coroner said that my son had been deceased for several hours. The Watchers at Dusk. It was warm for a December afternoon in Hutchinson, Kansas, when Claire came home from work in 2008. Claire's ride dropped her off across from her duplex, and as she stood in the street, her ride moving slowly away, she knew something wasn't right. "I noticed 2 boys standing in my driveway," she said. "One had longer dark hair, and the other had his hood up, so I couldn't see him very well. The teenagers, about 15 or 16 years old, seemed to be watching her. Claire felt they were waiting for her. She steeled herself and walked nervously across the road toward her porch. The boys had lurked around her neighborhood for months, but they'd never been so bold as to stand this close to her home. I had seen them before, lingering in the yard, but they always left before I got out of my ride's car," Claire said. "I had seen them late at night as well, standing across the street when I would go outside to have an occasional late-night cigarette. But although pangs of unease told her to run, their boldness angered her. She stopped and asked them why they were on her property. They told me they needed to use a phone and that the neighbors would not let them in," she said. "That was when I noticed their eyes. They were coal black. Just black. No white and not even a hint of iris or pupil. Fear shot through her, but as evenly as she could, Claire told them she didn't have a telephone. Claire walked up her porch steps and began to unlock her door when the boy in the hood spoke. He asked if they could come in for a glass of water," she said. "I turned to look at them again, thinking maybe my mind was playing tricks. But no, when I turned and looked into their eyes, they were pitch black as the first time. These children with dead, black eyes had spoken softly to her, emotion and vocal inflection absent from their words. As she looked at these boys, whose long hair and hooded sweatshirts she felt hid more than skin, she knew she had to get away. I felt panicked and fearful, but also very vulnerable and cold," she said. "It was like I wanted to let them in, but I knew there was evil present. I had felt uneasy before seeing their eyes, but now it all came out." Then one boy said something that turned her fear into complete terror. "The hooded one then told me they couldn't come in unless I told them it was okay and that they hoped I would because they were thirsty," Claire said. "I opened my door and darted inside. At this point, I shut the door and locked it." She dropped onto the couch, her breaths coming in short, heavy gasps, when something tapped on the window behind her head. One of the boys stood there staring through the glass, Claire said. "I remember his words very clearly. 'Just let us in, miss. We aren't dangerous. We don't have anything to hurt you with.' I was beyond frightened at this point. Claire jumped off the couch and ran through the duplex, checking doors and windows to make sure they were locked. I did wonder if they really couldn't come in unless invited, but I didn't want to find out," she said. "I sat in the living room, silently waiting for a sign that they had gone." Where her boyfriend came home a short time later, the black-eyed teens were still at the house. He asked if I knew who the 2 boys outside were, and I said no, Claire said. "He told me they had been standing in the driveway when he pulled up, but walked away when he stepped out of the car. He didn't notice the boys' eyes, but they gave him a strange feeling." Claire later asked her neighbors if the black-eyed children had asked to use their telephone like they had claimed. The neighbors noticed the teens standing in Claire's driveway, but never spoke with them. Although it's been more than a year since Claire turned the black-eyed children from her door, she knows they're still around. "I still see them every now and then standing across the street watching," she said. "But they have not approached again." Written by Jason Offutt. You can see much more of his stuff at his blog, From the Shadows. I highly recommend it. As an additional note, this is supposedly a true story. So if you think it should have ended differently, learn to time travel / become God / Haruai, Suzumiya / etc. Copyright statement. Unless explicitly stated, all stories published on creepypasta.com are the property of and under copyright to their respective authors. and may not be narrated or performed under any circumstance.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.